I love a cool tone grayscale moment, but I need a little bit more variety, you know? Literally, who wants 5 different shades this color? Hi, welcome back to my channel. Today, I want to talk to you about the new NATASHA DENONA MIDI XENON palette. That's right, you've probably seen it all through your feeds within the last couple of weeks. The palette did release a couple of weeks ago, and I've had a lot of friends asking me if I was going to pick it up. And I feel like a lot of people assumed that I would have had a video with that palette up already. And I don't. So in today's video, we're going to talk a little bit about why. And I'm going to share some of my favorite cool tone palettes with you, show them to you so you can get a little bit of eye candy. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the NATASHA DENONA MIDI XENON palette. So let's get into it. But first, if you're interested in this eye look, wait, did I show you or did I just hold my head awkwardly? Let's try that again. Yeah, it is late at night when I'm filming this video, so I apologize for the poor lighting. I'm doing my best here. But the palettes that I'm wearing today, it's my Cool Vibes and my Mary Jane palette by Melt. This one is by Violet Boss. This palette is currently back in stock. Yeah, and so I did also touch just a little bit of shimmer with the Glam palette. Anyhow, yeah, so I do have a video creating this eye look. I'm not sure if that video will be up on my channel before or after this particular video. So if it's already up, I'll link that up here in the eye and down below in the description box. If that's not out yet, just make sure you're subscribed and click the bell for the notifications, and you should get that video alert when it pops up so that it can pop up in your feed. Okay, so speaking of the Melt Mary Jane palette, I want to show you some of the shades in my collection that make me feel like I don't need the NATASHA DENONA Mini XENON palette. Specifically this silvery shade here. Okay. Feel like that's one of the shimmery shades that helps me replicate some of the effects from that palette. And then here we've got the Violet Voss Cool Vibes palette. In this palette, I've got not only the light shades, but I've got a deep shimmery, like gunite gray color here. And then here I've got the perfect mid-tone gray. It's a little bit deeper than some of the lighter shades, but I feel like between this corner here, I've got the cool tones that I need covered to make a really nice look. And then if you pop in some sparkly blacks and silvers from these other palettes that I'm going to share with you, I pretty much have all the looks that you're going to get out of the Mini XENON, MIDI XENON. Now, obviously because I have the Mini XENON, I don't really need the MIDI in my opinion. I feel like this is basically the color story covered, especially this one here. And this shade here, this really light gray there, although I have gotten good use out of it from this palette, it's not my most favorite shade of gray for a light, for a light shade of gray. And so the fact that there's basically like 4 or 5 of those shades right there in the larger palette, I feel like I don't really need anything from over there. I've got these good mattes to work with over here. I've got a really beautiful sparkly shimmer. I always love the looks that I get with this palette. I do have a look with this palette up on my channel, so I will link that up here in the eye and down below in the description box. Be sure to check out down there for any additional related content. But that brings me to the NATASHA DENONA Glam palette. Here again, I've got like this deep shimmer gunite gray. And then for like a deep smoky matte, I've got that shade there. In this MAC X Whitney Houston eyeshadow palette, I've got a really beautiful black shade here. Is it matte? Yeah, it's a matte. It's a little bit of like a gray, a deep, deep, dark gray matte shade there. And then here I've got gray shade. So between those, I feel like that's a really nice cool tone moment. And if we want to look here inside the NATASHA Denona 10 pan palette, I believe this was her very first palette, like big palette. I got this when it was on sale for like $30, I think, $20 or $30 on her website when it was clearancing out. These shades here, these two right here, these three maybe. I think it's these three shades right here are from the gold palette. And then I've got those shades into another palette. But so these two shades here from this palette, which is the original part of the palette, these two particular shades here, they're both satins. Those can make a really great like mid-tone moment for kind of duping the vibes of the color story. So between that and then this light shade here, this white sparkly shade, I feel like I don't need the MIDI Xenon for that. Then if we want to step away into a smaller palette again, we've got the new Sultry, the mini Sultry. I recently did a video with it. I recently filmed a look with this, my first impressions. So if you haven't seen that, be sure to check down below. But here from this palette, I've got this really beautiful gray matte. I love this matte right here. And we've got this beautiful, sparkly, intense shimmer. It's not too intense though. It's not as intense as the one in this mini Xenon. So it helps to give you like a different type of texture, a different type of a formula, a different level of payoff so that you can get some variety in your silvers, kind of like that palette offers a variety in the three colors, basically white, gray, and silver, like white, gray, and black. Now here in this little quint, I believe this is coming up in people's boxy charms, and people are finding these palettes, these 5-pan palettes, at like TJ Maxx and stuff throughout America, like throughout the US. So if you get lucky enough to score one of those, this particular one is the one that has a really intense cool tone moment. This shade is super sparkly. Let me swatch this. Oh my God. Oh, like this shade is so creamy and buttery. I wasn't planning on swatching, but let's just, oh, so beautiful. That really does it no justice, but that is so pretty. Like I barely touched that shade, and look at that. Oh, it's so beautiful. Okay, I'm not gonna start swatching because I'm gonna end up with makeup everywhere. Okay, but yeah, you can get a really beautiful cool tone moment from this palette here. I really need to use this one again. It's been a while since I've touched it. Now, also another really great cool tone palette that made me feel like I don't need that one, the MIDI Xenon, is this one here. This is the Subversive. I had to think about that for a second. This is the Subversive palette, and right here is a very sparkly black shadow. That right there goes, along with this black matte here, goes great for creating that like black sparkly effect that you can get from a couple of the shades from the MIDI Xenon palette. Now, also for a beautiful set of some cool tone shades, if you picked up the Tarte Big Ego palette, here, there are a few really nice cool tone shades. You've got this gorgeous sparkly shadow here. You've got this shimmery sparkly black shadow here that I think would make a beautiful cool tone smoky eye. I love the particular hue of this matte right there. It's a little bit like a deep, deep mushroom taupe gray. It's so beautiful. It's not just like ashy white gray or deepened up gray. It's got like a little bit of a hint of plum, like a dusty plum undertone to it. So it keeps it from being just like a bunch of boring grays over and over again, you know, that you don't get enough variation from. So I would have liked to have seen this color of a cool tone matte in the MIDI Xenon from NATASHA DENONA. Now, there are a few of the shimmers that you can get some super sparkly effects here if you have the NATASHA DENONA I Need a Nude palette. I personally don't think this is a very cool tone moment. Even if you were to exclude the warmer shades from this palette, the ones that are left behind are just not very cool tone to me. So maybe not this one, but definitely the Pat McGrath Subliminal palette. Like, you know, obviously the black, and you've got this, well, that kind of leans blue, but you've got like some cool tone mattes here that go really beautifully. And then if you happen to have either of these Naked palettes by Urban Decay, you've got some beautiful silvers in here. Let's go through them. You've got this particular one here that has like a little bit more of a mature, subdued silver. I would say that this one equates to the silver in the new version of the Sultry, because in the older version of the Sultry, the silver was a lot more impactful, in my humble opinion. And so also in here, the Urban Decay Wild West, Naked Wild West, you've got this one super, super intense silvery shimmer there. And you've got that beautiful same shade of matte that I was showing you that I just love so much that I feel like NATASHA DENONA should have done in the MIDI Xenon that was also in the Tarte Big Ego palette. That shade right there. I like that shade a lot. It's like the beautiful, it's like a beautiful mid-tone deep gray. And last but not least, the recently released very fun Naked Metal Mania palette. This one here, you've got some really intense shimmers. This whole end right here is pretty cool tone. You can get a very smoky cool tone moment right there. And so like, I felt like, okay, with all due respect, I feel like NATASHA DENONA really missed the mark with the MIDI Xenon. Now, I'll give her credit that she committed to a color story, this color story, and went all in, okay? Basically just provided the same format of colors over and over again in a variety of different formulas for each shade. That's what the MIDI is of this. And like, I don't need that. I was hoping to get a variety of cool tone shades with a little bit more oomph to them, not just a gray and white cemetery headstone color of white gray and black, basically, the couple of mid-tones in there. I was just really disappointed with the way that the palette actually performs. Like in her promo photos, it looked like it was going to have a little bit more interest and variation with a little bit of those, you know, tinges of pink in the sparkles that seemed to come out in the photos and some of her previous like initial swatches. But I'm pretty experienced with NATASHA DENONA shadows, and I've come to realize that her pink shimmers don't show very pink. Except for the ones in the MIDI Retro, okay? That's my opinion, that's how I feel. And so, like, the Glam palette, like, I was pretty disappointed in those shimmery pinks, too. They just weren't pink enough on my particular eyes. And I felt like that was gonna be the case with that one shade that everybody was really looking forward to within the MIDI. And I just had a feeling. So I wanted to wait and see everybody else get it. And once I started seeing a couple of people swatch it and use it, I was like, yeah, completely convinced that I was right. I did not need to see the palette perform in order to know that that palette just wasn't it for me personally. So yeah, I mean, a small part of me wants to get the palette just for the collector's mentality and to have all of her MIDI palettes. But as I've just shown you, I don't really feel like it's going to be providing too much within my collection. And so maybe when the palette goes like half price on clearance or something like that, maybe I'll get it at that time. But all of these palettes that I shared with you here are the reason why I didn't feel the need to get the MIDI Xenon, despite the fact that that's the color story. Like, I love a grayscale, I love a cool tone grayscale moment, but I need a little bit more variety, you know? Like a little bit, just a little bit of variety in textures and in actual shade tones. Like, literally, who wants 5 different shades this color? Not me. So, yeah, I didn't buy the Natasha Denona MIDI, and that's why. Let me know if you feel the same way, or if you bought the palette and you were disappointed with the palette. Let me know if you returned it. Let me know if it's the palette of your dreams and you're living your best smoky eye moment. I mean, I cannot deny you can make an incredible smoky eye look with that palette, and I love a smoky eye moment. We all know this, but I already have plenty of palettes like in my collection, as we've just seen, to create those moments. And so I just figured I would go ahead and save me the space, like save the space in my storage and save the money in my account. And yeah, I just didn't feel the need to get that palette, which surprises me a little bit. We'll see if it ends up in my collection one day, but as for now, I have no plans of picking it up. So yeah, if you did pick up the palette, let me know if you're enjoying it. I hope you love it, and I hope that it's everything that you wanted it to be and more. So yeah. That's going to do it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed hearing my reasons as to why I skipped the Natasha Denona Cool Tone palette release. Yeah. Anyways, thanks so much for hanging out with me. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please be sure to click the like button. It really does help my channel out so much. Make sure you're subscribed to my channel, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.